evening. I'm Jill. Oh, sorry. I'm Jill from Nature's Corner Market. I'm the owner here. Known Dr. Bergeron for a number of years, and he's helped me through a lot of events in my life, as he is right now. So we're really happy that he came to share some great information with us this evening. Thank you so much, Dr. Bergeron.
Thank you. By the way, we have some handouts that Kathy might help assist in dispersing. So the plan for tonight, roughly, is I'm going to speak about COVID for about 20 minutes, maybe a few minutes more. Kathy Stetler is going to speak about 20 minutes about lifestyle and juicing, and then we're going to open up for questions and see if we can help you. So, let's see. Okay, a couple thoughts. Got good news, bad news, worse news, and great news. A couple different things to talk about tonight. So on this COVID virus and this COVID vaccine, if you turn to this white page, and on the top it'll say Immune COVID Lecture. And I thought I would just mention in the medical world, when they look at COVID and the pathology behind it, they look at three things: inflammation, clotting, blood clots, and oxygenation. That's where they put the whole package of disease and symptoms. And if you notice in parentheses, I put one more. There's also deficiency, okay? And that's connected to the good news I'm going to talk about. Now, the next section talks about who is at risk for a significant COVID illness or virus. So I've listed about, 12 different things. And the first one is those people who are never supplementers. You know, you've heard of never Trumpers, where you have never supplementers, those who say, I'm not taking any supplements. So you're probably deficient. And I would bet money if we tested you through blood testing or urine or something, we would find that you're not optimal and you're probably deficient. So if you personally, or if someone in your family or your parents or grandparents, if you're worried about them, this is the group that you pay attention to. And this is they say that 50% of people with a COVID infection never even knew they had it. Completely asymptomatic. So what you have to realize, it's not the virus that's the issue. It's the different susceptibility in people. Now, and of course, with time, you have different newer strains of COVID, but they seem to be less of a problem. They're less virulent or pathogenic, but they're a little easier to catch, or they're more contagious. That seems to be the development over the last year. So anyway, if you have any of these conditions on that list of people at risk, this is who needs to be very proactive and maybe even have a physician they know they can call on in case they get sick, and there can be immediate care provided. So that's pretty straightforward. Now, one of my summary points about this last year in COVID illness is this next line that says, severe disease or death proves that you had underlying, undetected, or neglected health factors. It's absolute proof. If somebody was 30 and died, I don't care if they didn't go to the doctor, they didn't have diagnoses, they weren't on meds, they died because they were susceptible. They may have known they were susceptible, they may have had issues, but they didn't address it. It's not the virus, really. Not when there's a 98, 99% survival rate. It's not about the virus. And most of you probably know that. So remember, the death rate just proves not that we need a vaccine necessarily, and not that we need to shut down the country or wear a face mask. The death rate means we need to take care of our immune systems in our bodies. That's what it really means. Now, the next thing, most of us have heard of this old 200-year-old debate. It's actually probably a couple thousand years old, about the germ theory versus the host theory. Now, another fancy term for host theory is the biological terrain. So is it the bug that really causes the problem, or is it the susceptibility of an individual because their internal biological terrain is not very healthy? Now, I lean on that side. Certainly, there are certain bugs that are more pathogenic than others, but lots of people recover from certain infections. And the difference is they had a better terrain, they had a better, stronger immune system, they were less toxic. Now, let me ask you this, the next section, under nutrient or nutritional laboratory levels. How many people in this room in the last year maybe tested a vitamin level or a mineral level? 2? 3? Well, they actually, they're patients at my clinic, so yeah, it's not, so I brought this up not to shame you or anything, but to challenge you, maybe to think about once a year or every 3 or 4 years, what's my zinc level? Don't assume, okay? Don't assume, but prove it. So here's a simple way to determine where your level should be. Look at the normal reference range on a laboratory report. Let's take zinc. The level's between 60 and 130. Well, I don't want to be a 61. Okay, that's a D minus. I want to be 120. So generally speaking, when you look at levels of nutrients in the blood, you want to be on the top of the chart. And maybe even a little bit higher depending on your health or your disease issues. So that's pretty simple. And you don't need to do it necessarily every year. Now, one of the things that has recently come out in the last year, does anyone know what the average level of vitamin D is in all the people that died of COVID? Under 50, that's a good answer. There's a better, more accurate answer. Remember, the normal range is 30 to 100. In our clinic, we encourage people to shoot for 60, average person. If you have cancer or some significant disease, we like 80 or 90. Most people, when they walk into my clinic, they're about a 32. They're barely above 30. So what do you think the average vitamin D level is in the people who died? It's 15 or 16. Okay? It's possible that with just vitamin D levels of 60, many of them would have never died. It's possible. So your any friends or family or loved ones that you're concerned about, get their vitamin D level. And you don't have to come to my clinic. You can go to anylab.com and walk in without a lab. And it's probably $50. So yes. There you go.
Do you do zinc too?
Do you do zinc?
Do you do any other ones? Do you zinc or just vitamin D?
Well, there's a more anything. It's just a link to another website. But and then I will have I don't know how you feel about SpectraCell. I'll have white blood cell testing as well. So that's a whole other story we can get into. Cellular versus serum.
Now, the last nutrient under that section, nutrient laboratory levels, I mentioned glutathione. That would be more important, not really for everyone, but if you have serious chronic health problems or you're on a boatload of medications, then you might make less glutathione, or your body might eat it up in processing different medications, or if you have chronic pain. And low glutathione levels are thought to be one of the reasons that patients had such severe lung symptoms when they had a COVID pneumonia. Okay? And so one of the things that alternative functional medicine practices did was using nebulized glutathione into the lungs. Okay, at the bottom of the page is the most basic COVID or viral prevention protocol. These would be the 4 things that everybody should do, unless you think you're allergic to one of them, then we can fix that. And it's pretty simple ranges, Any questions about those levels? Does that seem pretty straightforward?
Is this Dr. Bergeron like all year round?
Good question. I would say it's in the colder months, 6 months of the year, and not so much in the warmer months. There's generally less viral illnesses. All right, so turn it over the page. And I've listed an expanded protocol. If you want to be more aggressive, more proactive, you want to take more supplements, if you want to come to Jill's store and help her, we have a list of things that fall under the immune system, and I've listed 4 different herbs. There's probably 30 more, but these are just very common, basic herbs that have been studied for decades. Don't forget that part of the immune system is your healthy bacteria in the gut. So probiotics is a form of immunotherapy. Also, under the multivitamin mineral section, don't forget greens. Whether it's greens in a capsule or greens in a powder, it's a great way to supplement, especially if you don't really like green, lots of vegetables and salads. If you have an aversion, you can do it with green drinks. And then omega-3. The reason that is on there is because they're in this COVID protocol is because they're anti-inflammatory and they help circulation, as does the next one on the list called nattokinase. One of the big issues with COVID was with people developing blood clots and lung clots. So if you're immobilized, you're stuck in a bed or a wheelchair, or you don't get up much, or you just you fell, last year and you fell and broke your hip and you can't move, you're likely to, if you get the virus, it causes coagulation problems, and you're already not moving much. So for those at risk, poor circulation, poor movement, omega-3 and or nattokinase. And then one other thing, from a medication standpoint, we did this with quite a number of our patients. We would do a prescription protocol where they would take either ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine once a week as a preventive antiviral. So I can't really prove that it works because we use it as a preventive, but it is a common preventive throughout the world. So that's, and then under antiviral therapy, naturally, there's lots of things, but I'll mention just 2 simple ones: monolaurin and colloidal silver. And then again, as a prescription, ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine are great antivirals. We used probably 90% of our clients, we use hydroxychloroquine because it was so inexpensive. We had so many clients who would say they started the HQ and within 5 hours their fever was gone and they felt so much better. It didn't work for every single person, but probably about 95%. And then taking this protocol a little further, at-home medical therapy, oxygen. If someone's got a little COVID pneumonia, their pulse ox is about 95%. Well, you don't need to run to the hospital, but you're feeling a little short of breath. And then you get short of breath, you get anxious, and things get worse. So a little supplemental oxygen at home can keep you out of the ER and out of urgent care and out of expensive, hospital bills. We can also do nebulized steroids. Most of you probably heard about that protocol about a year ago, but it could be the one medication, the simplest and easiest and most cost-effective thing that you can do from a prescription medical standpoint is to either take oral steroids if you felt like you're getting sick, or to nebulize them into your lungs, especially if you're at risk. One of our attendees tonight, Carrie, she took steroids while she got COVID, and she was instantly better, felt great, right? So anyway, and then nebulize dilute hydrogen peroxide, also nebulize colloidal silver, can also be helpful to prevent pneumonia. Also, if you have weak adrenal glands, sometimes known as Addison's disease, you burn out and you need hydrocortisone to live on, then, or if you're barely, let's say you're borderline Addison's, but no doctor will give you the diagnosis, but you feel it because your blood pressure's, 90/50 and you always get weak. And so a little bit of low dose cortisol or hydrocortisone could help people that are at risk also. Also at home, again, you can take ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine. We also can do intravenous vitamin C at home. Of course, we have to get a nurse. You have to go to your house. But we didn't want acutely infected COVID patients coming into our clinic because it would affect the rest of our clients and our staff. So if someone wanted something like vitamin C, we could arrange that at home. And then, of course, there's intravenous glutathione. There's a precursor to glutathione called intravenous NAC, which you can also take by mouth. And then we've also done intravenous colloidal silver, which you can do at home. So those are just examples of at-home medical things you can do and avoid the hospital. And then lastly, at the bottom of this page, I wanted to mention a protocol called the Merrick Protocol. It comes from a physician in Virginia. He's got some fancy credentials and a lot of experience. He's a professor of medicine and pulmonary and critical care medicine. And he, with another team, developed a very extensive protocol for the hospital and the ICU. And you can see the different components at the bottom. They addressed inflammation, circulation. They used antivirals. By the way, they use nutrients. They put everybody on zinc and vitamin D. Do you know that's never been done in 100 years in America? For the medical system, conventional medicine hospitals, to put people on nutrients. That's what I call a paradigm shift. I just the other day I was thinking about tonight and what would I say? And I realized that this is big. Now, they're not going to talk about this on the news. They're not going to admit they really did it. But many ICUs and ERs adopted this Merrick protocol, and everybody got D and zinc. Now, they also gave omega-3s too and vitamin B1. Then they used hormones. Think about it. Bioidentical hormone therapy was a part of medicine in the ICU. That is radical. Then they used quercetin as an herbal plant extract. That doesn't go in hospitals, but every COVID hospital started using it. And then they also did intravenous vitamin C. They would fight you 5 years ago, but now everyone got it. This is pretty good news. This is the good news that I talked about, this paradigm shift. And then lastly, they use oxygen. So the bad news is that our medical system failed us. It didn't protect us in many, many ways. It didn't stand up against the trauma and the anxiety and the false alarm. They didn't do anything, and they let the government politicians drive the agenda. So I'd say the medical system failed us. But here's what's interesting. You know, about 6 months ago, you couldn't buy zinc. You couldn't find it. Doug told me he sold, well, actually, someone else said they sold more zinc, this one multi-level supplement company, they sold more zinc in 3 months than they had sold in 3 years. And all of America caught on to it. They weren't going to wait for the medical system to help solve this issue. So that was the bad news. Our medical system failed us. The worst news is the political, medical, corporate deal. How they drove this COVID virus panic and how they're driving the vaccine issue now. Now, let me tell you the great news. The great news is we live in America. We have a Constitution, and we have freedom. It's whittled away over the last 200 years, but we can freely speak as a general rule. Maybe not on Twitter and Facebook, but we can speak. And we can share our opinions, and we can call our elected officials, and we can make our voice known, and we can stop this foolishness. So later on we'll talk about vaccines, but if this vaccine agenda goes through, it's only going to be one reason. The American people allowed it to. Don't blame the politicians or the corporate owners. Yeah, they're to blame, but ultimately it's we the people. So, lastly, the other page, this is a COVID vaccine protection protocol. if you choose to receive a vaccine, or if you're forced to take a vaccine, this is a simple protocol, 5 nutrients. Start 1 week before you get the vaccine and take it for 4 weeks after. Now, if you've got other significant medical issues, then you could take this longer, or maybe even think about intravenous vitamin C after the vaccine. There's a number of things that, we would do. So hopefully that'll be helpful to you. It's pretty self-explanatory, and all these things are available right here at Jill's Health Food Store. All right, so Kathy Stetler, the reason she's important tonight is because we talked about biological terrain. And so Kathy's going to talk to us about, supplements are great, very, very important, but there's something even more foundational, more important, and so she's going to share with us about nutrition.
I have learned so much since I started working for him, and I'll just tell you, we don't learn these things normally, right? We don't learn these things, and it seems very foreign at first when you first start getting exposed to this, and very odd and unusual. And once we just open our minds and watch the healing go on in a place like that, it is amazing. So I'm not a doctor. I don't treat, diagnose, or prescribe, and I have a doctor right here beside me to, if I say anything, he can medically back it up. The following information is meant to educate and inform, and I just urge you to continue with being responsible for your own health and being your own health advocate, because it's very important we stand up for ourselves. And if you aren't in a position to be your own health advocate, then make sure that a loved one, is there for you to do it. That's my mom over there, and I had to be her health advocate last year because she got very, very sick. And make sure that you do not give in to that. You have the right to be an advocate for yourself and for your family members. So we're going to talk a little bit about juicing and smoothies today. And basically, a lot of people get confused with juicing, cleansing, detox, juice cleanses. What do they all mean, right? A lot of the words are being used interchangeably these days. When I think about a cleanse, I think about it more to be short-term, done with intention, intended to remove toxins from the body, the mind, and the GI tract. And I say that because a lot of times we need to cleanse ourselves from the media, from social media. We need to cleanse ourselves in an emotional way, just as importantly as a physiological way. We detox our body more of a long-term. When our body's functioning appropriately, we actually detox naturally. And a juice cleanse, a juice fast, those are all just, to me, other ways that kind of even prepare us for the bigger thing that I love to talk about on another day, is true fasting, because that is truly life-changing, and it's a healing and amazing thing when you tell people that not eating is good for you. It blows people's minds. People ask a lot of questions about what to expect when they do a juice cleanse, and I want to really tell you it depends. It's very individualistic what you do when you juice, what happens to you. It depends on your age, your gender, your dependency on sugar. What you eat on a daily basis is really going to determine how you can juice. The results are usually very positive. It can reduce or eliminate bloating, reduce or eliminate cravings. You get regular, I'm talking about pooping. Better mood, hydrated, mental clarity. There's so many things, I had to write them down. Boost your energy, deeper sleep, and that always important weight loss, right? That's just your go-to thing if you want to. Probably nobody needs that in here, but just know that it does work. Juicing can be used as an introduction to fasting, and what you do is you still get the energy and the calories that you need, and the nutrients, and then you can kind of move on to that ultimate goal of fasting. So when you think about it, juicing has upwards of 4 pounds, depending on how big the bottle is. And that's a lot of fresh produce to get in your system at one time. That this would probably be challenging to most Americans to consume that much in one day. So it's really beneficial to use juicing as an option. How often to do it is a question I'm often asked. You know, you could do 1 day, 3 day, or 5 day juices. I mean, I think that you could probably juice up to weeks if you wanted, but you can't live on juicing alone, that's for sure, right? Because all the fiber, most of the fiber, not all the fiber, is taken out of the juice. And fiber is a really, really important thing in our diet. So depending on whether you're beginner or advanced, and that's kind of like what I help people with, is getting them, first of all, off of sugar, and then using juicing to either help that process move along or even do juicing in conjunction with that. I think also, too, it's important to talk about our relationship that you have with food to begin with. What's the relationship with food? Because some people are very, very attached to chewing, and they're very emotionally involved with their food. So juicing can be an actual experience of giving something up, right? It can be a psychological experience. It can be even a little bit emotionally traumatic when people are like, but I have to eat. I have to eat 6 meals a day. My doctor says I have to. And that epiphany, when it's like you really don't have to, you will not die. You will not die if you don't eat 6 meals a day. So juicing versus smoothies, not smoothing, smoothing. What's the difference? Well, we already talked about one of them. Juicing has very little fiber. The body absorbs the nutrients faster, and obviously you use a juicer to juice. Smoothies have insoluble and soluble fiber. They can be used as a meal replacement. They contain whole veggies and fruits, which include the skin and the nuts. How you doing, Mike? You doing good? And you use a blender. Okay, those are just the basic differences. And of course, there's so many benefits to juicing. It's easy for the body to use the nutrients. They're easily absorbed. They're therapeutically used to treat diseases. And like we talked about, you can drink your nutrients, so you can get a large quantity of very healing produce. And what I do want to urge and encourage you here, well, first of all, Jill has left they do a wonderful cleanse here that a lot of my clients do, and it's really important that your juices be organic. Because if you're not using organic produce and vegetables, and you're using that skin from the apple, and it's full of toxins and pesticides and herbicides, you're actually not serving your body as you could with organic juices. And you seem like a pretty smart crowd that you already know that, but you'd be surprised how many people don't take that into consideration. Gives your digestive system a break from chewing all the time. Basically, we kind of call it a little bit of a reset of your taste buds. It can help you curb your cravings. And another great thing I love about juicing is that you can incorporate veggies that you normally wouldn't eat, right? You might not like the taste. Like, I don't like chard, but I can manage it in a juice. So the benefits of smoothies. They can be a meal replacement. You actually could live off them if you wanted to. They're a nutritious drink for on the run. They're good for athletes and special populations to increase their calories. It's a great way to increase your protein intake, and another way to add vegetables that you normally wouldn't eat. And so, along with the good, there's always, he talked about the good and the great, right? And there's always a downside. And I'll just give you a few of the downsides. You have to drink your juices quickly because they will oxidize. And what that means is they can turn a weird color and their nutrients kind of dissipate. So you want to drink them really quickly after they're juiced, or put them in a dark bottle, and that helps. Juices really aren't filling. So if you have a juice and you're trying to juice and you eat less calories to lose weight, and you've got a lot of sugar in that juice, and then you drink it fast, you're going to be hungry in a couple of hours. And this is a really big problem for some people who are trying to use juicing as a fasting. They can be very high in sugar. That's why I mostly talk about juicing your veggies and then just adding whatever small apple, something you need to the juice, just to give it a little bit of sugary taste. Smoothies can be super high in calories. I'm just saying, people are like, I can't lose weight. And one of my clients, actually, I saw here, and I asked what was in her smoothie, and we figured out her smoothie, because a lot of what health coaches do, we're kind of like a detective to figure out, like, why are you stuck? Why is this happening? Her smoothie had 1,800 calories in it. That was her first meal of the day, and she still ate. And she's like, I just can't lose weight. And I'm like, well, I think I might have figured it out. I'm just going to tell you, it's this thing you're drinking. This is a monster. Smoothies can be very high in sugar. And if you're buying your smoothie, they can have some very undesirable ingredients. So I always really encourage people when they're making a smoothie, if they want to add a protein, add a protein, hemp protein, pea protein, one ingredient, and then that way when you end up having your whole smoothie, it might be 8 ingredients, but it definitely, you added each ingredient yourself. And the other thing, juices, especially when you're coming back from an illness, a virus, any sickness, they're very, very healing and helpful to your body and very easy on the digestive system to just get you back to health and where you want it. So that's it. That's my little story about juicing. Here's some things up here about the juicing they have here. I love the way Jill does it. I believe you developed this juicing program yourself. Okay, well, I think you used to. I don't know, but anyways, it's a good one. I've done it. My daughter does them regularly. And let me add one more thing. It's really good to juice with a friend. When you're doing a juicing cleanse, and this is true for anything, it's really good. You and your wife just did it together. They did 5 days, and it's good when you have a partner that one's not eating in front of you. And I really encourage you in anything that you're trying to change about yourself in order to change a habit, bring a friend along and do it together because it's really, really beneficial.
So let me mention my wife and I did a 5-day juice fast in February. I haven't felt that good in 20 years. I used to juice in med school, and then you start the merry-go-round goes faster and faster, and all of a sudden it's 20 years later, maybe 25 years later, and I really hadn't done much juicing. So we did 5 days. I just have never felt so good in really 20 years.
Stop talking about it. I think I talked about it so much. He's like, oh my God. Let's do one.
So I've decided that we're gonna do one every quarter, every 3 months, and we've already got a date set. We'll do it right before Memorial Day, and I like to do it before a holiday because you go into the holiday with much more energy and less of an appetite for all the things that are being served. So anyway, juicing is great, and I highly recommend it. And I would say start with a day. Make it through a day. You do okay? Well, next week, do it 2 days. And just gradually add to it as you're able to tolerate it.
I think it depends on the program that you're doing. I find that normally you do about 6. I think there's 6 in yours. I think there's 2 shots. Like hers are shots, but then I mix it with water and make it a drink. And then there's full juices. Yeah. Right. Normally there's about 6 a day. And that's the programs that I've used. They're 5 or 6 a day. And they do have beginning, intermediate, and advanced cleanses because it's a really good idea to do it for 1 day, and they do 1 day juices here. But it's also really good that when you first start juicing, there actually is a little more sugar in those drinks because some people aren't used to drinking stuff like that, and they're like my mom. I bring my green juice up, and my mom's like, "Oh, that looks," So when you make it a different color or you add some sugar to it, it reprograms your mind that you're able to tolerate it. And then more advanced juices, those have, like the juices I do, there is no sugar. If I'm doing a juice cleanse, I'm doing no sugar. That is kind of what, I do. But you definitely gradually work up to that. Oh, hey.
I've been off of sugar almost 5 years, so for me, juice is a lot of sugar. So I have stayed away from juicing because even, fruits is a lot of sugar for me.
Right.
I do very low fruits, very low glycemic, keep my blood sugar as stable as possible. So how can someone like me juice without having one?
So that's a great question because that just shows the mind shift that we both have. Because when I think of juicing, I don't think of apple juice. I don't think of orange juice. I don't think of grapefruit juice. When I think of juicing, I think of celery, cucumber, ginger. So my idea of juicing is very different than when you're thinking. So I juice with vegetables, and then if you need to add, like whenever you make some of my juices here for me, I literally take most of the sugar out of if there's an apple or something. Like if there's 2 apples or 1 apple, I'll put like a quarter of it in there. Yep. Yeah. Yep. That's all you. So you just everything is in there. All the veggies that you want. So that's what juicing. So that shift that you might need to make in your mind to make this go, you're not going to think of juicing anymore as orange juice or apple juice. Your shift is going to come because you're going to think of juicing as cucumbers and celery, and then you might just need a little tiny bit to get that little, it's sometimes they're a little too earthy for people or too grassy, like a lot of greens is too green. I love that, but I definitely worked my way up to that.
Sure. Adding a cinnamon too.
Oh, beautiful.
Lemon, that really cuts the green.
Yep.
That's
She knows. There you go. That's right.
And one other thing about fruit juices, you can treat yourself to a little dessert during a fast. You can do a shot of apple juice or a little shot of orange juice, but not a whole glass. And I didn't need those. Now, I have to admit, most juiced fasts will be, 4, 5, or 6 juices a day. I was working very steadily and intensely during the time, and I didn't have time to drink. So I would only get probably 4 in a day, and it was 2 during the day, and 1 at 6 o'clock and then 1 at 9 o'clock. So, but I just didn't have time to drink. I was too busy working. And so other questions about juicing or COVID? Yeah, yes, sir.
So with juicing, you talk about doing it for a period of days.
Yes.
Do you juice when you're not juicing? Is it part of your regular diet as well?
For me personally, yeah, juicing, I enjoy it. So my juices aren't really, I fast. So my personal thing is fasting, but a lot of times to get people to fasting, juice cleanses are very important, but juicing to me is a part of my life and my husband's life and that's what we do. So I buy a big thing. I have a juicing place near me. I buy a big half gallon of green juice. They make it special for me. It's like 5 minutes from my house, and that's what we drink in the morning if I'm not fasting. But my husband, he's gotten used to the taste. And so, yeah, so juicing is, a part of my life because the nutrients and the value that drinking all those nutrients as opposed to eating 4 pounds of veggies. And I love veggies, but that's a lot to eat, and it's a lot of preparation. So that's why it's just easy to come to a place like this. It's, it seems like it's more expensive, but honestly, by the time you buy a juicer, you clean it. You buy the juicer that doesn't take the bad, doesn't use heat or all that stuff about the juicers.
There's a huge difference in the amount of juice that my home juicer does versus what we have here.
Yep.
Like, there's a lot more juice that comes out.
Yep. They clean up the mess, and that's a big thing. Like, that's so helpful. But yeah, so you just, you come here, you order a 3-day juice, and then you could even do it as drink the juices in the morning and at lunch, and then if you're hungry, you have a small meal, right? I mean, there's so many ways to incorporate juicing just as part of your life. Hey, yes.
Thank you so much. Super valuable information. When, in terms of treating patients with COVID, if you were to take someone maybe young, not immunocompromised in any way, put them on this basic nutritional immune support program.
The A, D, zinc, and C? Yes, that would be the basic protocol for any person who's feels like they're healthy, no medical issues, young.
And then for someone that may be more immunocompromised, would you put them on something like the Merrick protocol to get those immune
Well, the Merrick protocol was for people who are going to the hospital or they're sick, and maybe we're going to do the Merrick at home. But, for example, if you look at the, when it said on the top of, it said expanded nutritional protocol, those were some things that you would add if you knew you were immune compromised and you don't want to get sick. So echinacea, elderberry, things like that. One other thing about juicing is, I said earlier, if you have an aversion to greens, you don't like salads, you can drink your greens. You can also replace a multivitamin mineral supplement with juice. So, that's another advantage to juicing.
And the vitamin D, the 20,000 I use a day, you're saying just for everyone.
Well, by the way, these suggested amounts, these were for adults. Obviously, if you're 10 years old, you're we could probably cut these in half. The vitamin A it said 10 to 20,000. A little hard to read the 10. And the D is also 10 to 20. I'll tell you this, when we check, I told you earlier that our goal in the office is for most people to be about a 60 on their vitamin D level, range 30 to 100. And the average dose of supplementation for our clients to achieve 60 is about 15,000. So 10 to and some people will do it with 6,000 units. They just absorb it very well, and their D level's really great. But I find the average person, it's somewhere around 15,000 units a day to get to that good, healthy 60 to 65 level. Yes?
Anything else you would add to those DAC, zinc, to help absorb better? Is there anything else you would add?
Great question. The question is about what might we add to help absorb these nutrients. Well, that's a simple answer. I would add a broad spectrum digestive enzyme with a little bit of betaine hydrochloride or stomach acid. So if you have any digestive symptoms, gas, bloating, constipation, loose stools, that digestive enzyme should help you absorb these nutrients and all your nutrients from your food.
And you recommend taking the DNA.
Well, usually, by the way, all of these supplements should be taken usually with food as a general rule. Yes.
I heard that quercetin actually helps get the zinc and all the good stuff where they're supposed to.
That is true. And that's why the Merrick protocol put people on quercetin.
I was wondering if I hadn't searched to see if there were actually studies on that. I know that's what everyone's.
I believe there are studies on quercetin. I just haven't there's so many studies about, I really think there are lots of studies about it. And by the way, hydroxychloroquine also helps get zinc in the cells. It has multiple actions. So, other questions? Yes, sir. Great question. Great question. Well, I don't have all the answers to that. Some generic suggestions. I think, for example, hyperbaric oxygen, the oxygen chambers, saturate the body and nerve tissue with oxygen. Oxygen is the great healer. It'll heal anything in the body to a degree. We also are using a laser in my office. We actually started treating people at no charge. We do 3 laser sessions to see if it would heal their olfactory and taste nerve. We just started, so I don't have any feedback. I actually made a house call on Saturday. No, so they came to my house, and then I made a house call to them on Sunday, and the young woman did say to me that after the laser treatment, after one treatment, she could already smell better. But I don't have a large group of people. What's that? You're welcome to come. The address is on that sheet. Did somebody else have a question over there? Okay, just wanted to make sure I didn't see a hand. Yes.
So and this again, I don't know if it was a study, or I heard that if you had optimal zinc levels to begin with, that you had less of a chance of losing your taste.
Listen, I would say that optimal levels of any of these nutrients because think about this, we have to ask ourselves, why did a person lose their taste and smell? Because the virus affected the nerve. Just like a shingles virus, a herpes virus affects the nerve. Or a Bell's palsy, when you lose, when your face droops, it's usually from an infection. It's a virus, and sometimes it's a spirochete like Lyme, and maybe it's a strep. But you can think virus when someone says, oh, I have Bell's palsy. So then you ask yourself, well, what do we do to protect against viruses? A, D, zinc, C. So it's probably true if anyone had optimal levels, they wouldn't lose their smell.
All right. So we're going to give away 2 books, okay?
2 books.
So I went to a nutrition school called IIN. That was my introduction introduction into this world. It was amazing. And
What does that stand for?
Institute for Integrative Nutrition, and it is a fabulous school. And I believe it led me in a direction to end up where I ended up today. And they were gracious enough to give me some to give away. And so I would love for you all to have an opportunity to be a Wilkins as well.
Okay, number 1. Is it Jed? All right. Congratulations.
Now you have to read that.
Oh, but she didn't tell you that's first part. So you have to actually do a
Write a
report. To our report.
We'll do a Zoom call.
Mike Ayers.
Oh my gosh. There you go.
Okay, so last minute question or yes.
Going back to vitamin D, actually, do you have an opinion on the 1.25 hydroxy, the active form of D, versus just checking the 2.5?
Jill's question is doing blood testing for different forms of vitamin D, and I really don't have much of a definitive opinion. One form is 3 times more expensive, and so just that alone, when you're paying, I don't know, $200 or so for a vitamin D level, I don't think it's absolutely necessary to take it to that level. I think if you can make sure your regular vitamin D level is 60 or 70 or 80, you're probably achieving what you want. That's my opinion, but take that with a grain of salt.
That's one thing I learned that was really important. It was eye-opening. Is that when you go get your blood work read, and it's like, well, you're normal, and it's like, oh, I'm normal, it's fine, right? And it's like what you said, like your vitamin D's a 31, and it's supposed to be 30, and they put you normal. And then he opened my eyes to the world of optimal. Like, I love the word optimal now, because who wants to just be normal? You just want to be a C? Like that, like who does it? You want to be an A. You want like blood work. You want your D to be like 89. Like when I get my vitamin D, I'm like, dude, it's like an 89.
So in our office, we sort of have 3. We have a number of rules that we follow, but 3 main ones. One is we start on time, we end on time. One of our clients asked me back in January, "Are you the only doctor that runs on time in Atlanta?" I said, "Well, I don't know, but that's what we do." Number 2, we want optimal ranges of everything.
Yep.
Hormones, vitamin D, And number 3, we want a personalized health plan for each person. No cookie cutter. So we like to describe our practice with those 3 things.
Yep.
So.
All right, you have to pick one more.
Oh, I thought there was only 2.
There is.
Tom Lalure. Is that right? Laliva. Oh, okay. It's a V. All right, got it. Yes. All right.
Well, thanks, you guys. We really appreciate you being here, and I always enjoy doing talks, and I learn so much when I get to do this with you. So we thank you all so much. If you have any questions, our information is on the letterhead. If you'd like to take a picture of my card, if you would like a personalized juice plan, you can actually talk to Jill about that. If you want to learn about fasting, I actually do a fasting protocol at Real Health Medical that I'm always excited to start with them on their fasting journey. So reach out to me if you just have a question or anything. You're welcome to. I love answering questions. So if you think of one after, feel free.